Ladies and gentlemen, meet George.
Hi everyone and welcome back to the George Collection. I'm Rachel Rightside Blonde. For today's episode, I wanted to take a look back in the book of political lists, particularly about one topic. There's 3 different lists that all pertain to one topic, and ironically, I wrote an article about that very topic and that very person. So I wanted to highlight the 3 things that kind of coincide into one from the book of political lists. And if anyone wondered if JFK Jr. was aware of this first third party in our history, well, now we have proof that he did. The first list I want to bring to everyone's attention is on page 22, presidents who were Masons. The Free and Accepted Masons, a fraternal order organized in England in the early 18th century, advocates philanthropy and religious tolerance. Masons have been active in U.S. politics since the Revolution, and their perceived influence in early 19th century America inspired the Anti-Masonic Party. It features a list of presidents who were Masons. None other than George Washington was in the Lodge number 4 in Fredericksburg, Virginia. It lists them in chronological order, all the way up through Lyndon Johnson and Gerald Ford. I noticed that President Kennedy wasn't on that list. The next list I want to bring to everyone's attention is on page 228, and it's called Significant Third Parties. Right there, front and center, first one listed, Anti-Mason Party, from 1827 to 1836, founded as a result of the mysterious disappearance of William Morgan, a former Freemason from upstate New York who threatened to publish an exposé of the Masonic movement. The party was built on a fear that the Masons and other secret societies posed a threat to democracy and Christianity. The National Party weakened after the 1832 elections when it carried Vermont, although it retained influence in parts of the Northeast. And the last list I want to highlight in this book is on page 258, and it's called The Code of Ethics for Government Service. These rules, the first ethics guidelines adopted by Congress, were passed in 1958. They still apply, and this book was written in, I think, 98. Any person in government service should, number 1, put loyalty to the highest moral principles and to country above loyalty to persons, party, or government department. Number 2, uphold the constitutions, law, and regulations of the United States and of all governments therein, and never be a party to their evasion. Number 3, give a full day's labor for a full day's pay. Give earnest effort and best thought to performance of duties. Number 4, seek to find and employ more efficient and economical ways of getting tasks accomplished. Number 5, never discriminate unfairly by the dispensing of special favors or privileges to anyone. And never accept for himself or herself or family members favors or benefits under circumstances which might be construed by reasonable persons as influencing the performance of government duties. Number 6, make no private promise of any kind binding upon the duties of the office, since a government employee has no private word which can be binding on public duty. Number 7, engage in no business with the government, either directly or indirectly, which is inconsistent with the conscientious performance of governmental duties. Number 8, never use any information gained confidentially in the performance of governmental duties as a means of making private profit. Number 9, expose corruption wherever discovered. And number 10, uphold these principles, ever conscious that public office is a public trust. I think it's safe to say that our government maybe hasn't been following these rules the best in the past. This code of ethics that they created in 1958. Number 1, put loyalty to the highest moral principles and to country above loyalty to persons, party, or government department. And number 5, never discriminate unfairly by the dispensing of special favors or privileges, and never accept for himself or herself or family members favors or benefits under circumstances which might be construed by reasonable persons as influencing the performance of government duties. They don't call them Joey bribes for no reason. Carrying on with this theme of the Anti-Mason Party in the George Book of Political Lists, I wanted to read some of my article that I wrote about that very topic. So here we go. In the early 19th century, the country's first third-party movement was born. Far from present-day political ideologies like those of the independents or libertarians, this third party was created solely to hold politicians in check, to ensure their oaths were to the country and nothing else. The story is long and complex, drawn out over decades of time, and perhaps is still being written. It all started with the creation of the Freemasons. Though the inception of this group is shrouded in mystery, to the outsider it is believed to have evolved from the medieval stonemason guilds that built Europe's great cathedrals. To others, the origins can be traced to Hiram Abiff, the widow's son who built King Solomon's temple. The Freemasons gained significant prominence in the early days of the United States. By the 18th century, Freemasonry had transformed into a secret society characterized by elaborate rituals, symbols, and a hierarchical structure. It attracted members from various backgrounds, including politicians, businessmen, and intellectuals, which contributed to its reputation of exclusivity as well as mystery. As the country expanded, so did the influence of the Freemasons. They established lodges throughout the United States in the name of philanthropy, and in today's terminology, business networking, and were known for their involvement in local politics and social affairs. To many outsiders, they were portrayed as a group of guys doing good for their communities, but this perception was not met without skepticism. Freemasonry began as a group of men devoted to fellowship, moral discipline, and mutual assistance. Though its members believe in a supreme being, it is often misconstrued as a religious organization. It is not. In fact, many organized religions have criticized Freemasonry from the start, contending it goes directly against biblical scripture. After all, Jesus did say, "I have said nothing in secret." In the country's early days, as with all new beginnings, growing pains ensued. Our young nation was boldly standing on its own 2 feet after risking it all for independence. It was inevitable that it would be hit by opposition. This time, however, it was not in the form of a British army, but rather a subtle infiltration. Our founding fathers were accustomed to early lodges they knew well, and maybe this familiarity clouded their ability to see what may have been occurring. Or maybe some of them knew. With the creation of the Illuminati and given its long-term mission according to its creator, it is not far-fetched to wonder if Freemasonry had been infiltrated by the Illuminati. The word Illuminati has been made to be a sort of pop culture buzzword, certainly not something to be taken seriously. Endless conspiracy theories surround the word, but it's important to note that it is not new. Many are quick to discredit historical evidence of what was accepted to be true. Did all those seeking to expose the group in the beginning spend years of their life writing books with information they conjured up on their own and put their lives in danger for a little fame, a little fortune? With people like Jay-Z holding his hands up in a pyramid shape on stage, the most well-known Illuminati symbol, the question becomes why? Why do those symbols? In a 2020 BBC interview, Viren Swamy, a professor of social psychology, stated, "There's no one profile of a conspiracy theorist. There are different perspectives of why people believe in these theories, and they're not necessarily mutually exclusive." So the simplest form of explanation is that the people who believe in conspiracy theories are suffering from some sort of psychopathology. Apparently, recounting history is now considered psychopathology. The Illuminati was created in 1776 in modern Germany by Adam Weishaupt in a supposed effort to enlighten people, to end ignorance. At least on the surface, the concept sounded all right, but it didn't get too far. By 1785, Bavaria banned the Illuminati, arrested its members, and found a plethora of incriminating evidence that showed they were conspiring against the government. Weishaupt escaped and fled to a safe place of Germany. It has been established that the original Illuminati was around from 1776 to 1787, the same amount of time and same years as when the United States wrote the Declaration of Independence to when America originated the Constitution. It was in existence for only 11 years, or so they say. If it had ended in 1787, the rest of the story would not be necessary. But it didn't end in 1787. At some point in those 11 years, Weishaupt shared his plan for the Illuminati with a gentleman named John Robison, who Weishaupt thought he could trust. Instead, Robison wrote a book, Proofs of a Conspiracy, which was released in 1798. The book exposed all of Weishaupt's plans, which were outlined in 6 key principles. Number 1, get rid of all governments. Number 2, get rid of private property and inheritances. Number 3, squash any patriotism. Number 4, eliminate family life and marriage. 5, institute public education. And 6, eliminate religion, Christianity. Clearly, if this list and plan were propagated into a barely formed country based on freedom and liberty, it would have had devastating effects instantly. Robison recognized the gravity of the situation and wanted to warn people of the plans Weishaupt had for the world. Because of the book and because of other factors at the time, people were starting to surmise that the Illuminati had not been dissolved after all, but rather had slowly and secretly infiltrated already established Masonic lodges. At the time proofs of a conspiracy was released, George Washington received a letter from Reverend G.W. Snyder urging him to take a closer look into a potential infiltration of the Masonic lodges by the Illuminati. Snyder encouraged Washington to read the book Robinson had written. The Reverend was deeply worried about the clandestine group spreading into all the lodges and the effects it would have on the country. Washington wrote back and stated that he had not been in a lodge for many years, but that he was confident the Freemasons were not being infiltrated by the Illuminati. Snyder then wrote to Washington again, insisting that he read the book. Washington wrote Snyder back, this time stating, "It was not my intention to doubt that the doctrines of the Illuminati and principles of Jacobinism had not spread in the United States. On the contrary, no one is more fully satisfied of this fact than I am." Washington was merely stating he did not think the Illuminati had infiltrated the Masonic lodges, though in the previous letter he stated, quote, he had not been in one more than once or twice within the last 30 years. How could he discern whether the Illuminati had infiltrated the Freemasonry when he had not been in a lodge in 30 years? Regardless, Washington was at least aware of and admitted that the Illuminati had reached the United States shores. Enter William Morgan. Morgan was a former Mason who knew the inner workings of Masonry. He announced his intention to publish a book revealing the secrets of the Freemasons titled Illustrations of Masonry. He entrusted his good friend David Miller, a newspaper publisher, to help him. Shortly after the announcement, on September 11, 1826, Morgan was arrested for theft and for non-payment of a loan and ended up in jail. Miller, the newspaper publisher and friend, paid the debt for Morgan, and Morgan was released. Shortly after the release, Morgan was arrested again, this time for non-payment of a $2 tavern bill. While the jailer was absent, a group of men went to the jail and convinced the jailer's wife to release Morgan, which she did. The group of men and Morgan then traveled through Bloomfield, then to Avon, then to Caledonia. They went to Leroy, then to Batavia, and finally to Fort Niagara along Niagara Falls. This is the last known location of William Morgan. He went missing after that 2-day trip. Although Morgan's fate remains unclear, many believed he was murdered by Masonic conspirators to prevent his exposé. The Morgan affair galvanized public opinion against the Freemasons and ignited a wave of anti-Masonic sentiment. Newspapers covered the case extensively, and public outrage swelled. In the wake of Morgan's disappearance, a groundswell of opposition to the Masons emerged, prompting the formation of the anti-Masonic movement. The movement quickly morphed into a political force, culminating in the formation of the Anti-Masonic Party in 1828. The party held its first national convention in Philadelphia, where it nominated William Wirt as its presidential candidate. The party's platform was straightforward. It aimed to expose the secrecy, alleged corruption, and undue influence of the Freemasons in American society and politics. Americans who were religious began to rise up, challenging Masonic rituals. Freemason became recognized as opposition to the traditions of religion and the Bible, and Christians everywhere sought to expose it. Surprisingly, political opportunists used the movement to gain power by exploiting the anti-Masonic sentiment by accusing their opponents of being Masons. In some cases, those who were truly Masons ended up dropping out of races, which gave rise to fresh, new political leaders. In the governor's race in New York, one anti-Mason opponent spread an untrue rumor that the incumbent governor, a high priest of the Grand Chapter of the Royal Archmasons, had ordered the execution of William Morgan. Though the incumbent won, the margin was closer than predicted because of the public's suspicion. The pinnacle of the anti-Masonic party's influence came in the 1832 presidential election. William Wirt, the party's nominee, garnered significant support in the northeastern states. He received 7.8% of the popular vote and carried Vermont, becoming the first third-party candidate in U.S. history to win a state in a presidential election. John Quincy Adams, an Andrew Jackson rival, joined the anti-Masonic party to condemn the Masons and Jackson, who was a Mason. In fact, later on in 1847, Adams published a book called Letters on the Masonic Institution, which criticized Freemasonry. Despite the early success of the anti-Masonic party, Andrew Jackson was reelected as president. By 1835, Americans were less focused on anti-Mason politics and more interested in the topic of slavery. The anti-Masonic legacy, however, continues. In modern times, there are no organized political parties dedicated to opposing the Freemasons or secret societies in the same way that the Anti-Masonic Party once did. But the movement brought issues of transparency, secrecy, and the role of secret societies into the public consciousness, leading to discussions about accountability in our government. In some regions, mostly in the Northeast, the anti-Masonic sentiment persisted for years and influenced local elections and politics. The anti-Masonic party served as an inspiration for all third-party movements, demonstrating the potential for grassroots movements to challenge established political parties. A statue was erected for William Morgan in 1882 by the National Christian Association. The inscription on the monument reads, "Sacred to the memory of William Morgan, a native of Virginia, a captain in the War of 1812, a respectable citizen of Batavia, and a martyr to the freedom of writing, printing, and speaking the truth. He was abducted from near this spot in the year 1826 by Freemasons and murdered for revealing the secrets of their order." The court records of Genesee County and the files of the Batavia Advocate, kept in the recorder's office, contain the history of the events that caused the erection of this monument. And this is a quote from John Robinson's Proofs of a Conspiracy from 1798. "Beware of false prophets, who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. By their fruits ye shall know them. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles?" I think this discussion of secret societies has been brought to the light from people like William Morgan, but also John Kennedy, who was talking about secret societies and secret oaths and how they're really not conducive to a transparent government. We need to know we can trust the men and women we elect to office. And if they're giving secret deals to certain people because they're members of the same secret society, that's a problem. That does it for this episode of the George Collection. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great week, and I will see you next time.
Of this extraordinary magazine, George, which is a hoot of a magazine. I thought you were a lawyer.
I was.
What happened?
Well, we decided, actually taking a cue from folks like yourself and you around the 1992 election, that there was an opportunity here to change the definition of a political magazine. Certainly the way Americans were accessing information about politics and politicians was changing. Candidates were appearing on late night talk shows, on talk radio, on sitcoms, and there was a kind of a leveling process. And while the rest of media clearly had caught up with that, we felt that political magazines per se hadn't.
Your mother was a hell of an editor at Doubleday.
That's what I hear.
Would she have liked George?
I think she would have.